Let's take a quick look at where I'm up to with the build before I install the motherboard. And the reason I'm doing this now is because once the motherboard is installed, you're not going to be able to see anything that's going on in this lower compartment, and I'm not going to really be able to access it anymore. I mean, Case Labs has thought of this. The 3.5 inch and 2.5 inch drive mounting panels are removable, so you can install hard drives and SSDs later without having to strip down your entire build. And you can see the 3.5 inch drive mounting panel is quite a bit bigger than it needs to be to give you proper access into this lower compartment. But for that, you'd have to tip the case upside down, and it would still be quite difficult to plug and unplug cables and manage cables and things like that. So I'm doing all of the cable management now, and you can see I've completed most of the cable management, but I am also going to be installing the cables for the core components now, because it's just going to make things a lot easier than removing that lower panel and trying to do it. Now I'm about to swap the cable combs on these from the plastic ones that we had to the new Singularity Computers billet aluminium cable combs, and then I can install the rest of the cables, and that will be all of the cables for this build. You can see these ones here are plugging into the motherboard. We have the USB 3 SATA data and the RPM sensors from the pumps. But looking at this case, you would think this is going to be a difficult case to build into, tight, and I really thought I was going to run into a lot of problems, mainly because the customer wants dual loops. You can see we have dual pump and res combos here, and two radiators. Obviously, we have a 280mm at the front here and a 240mm at the top. And SLI, I was thinking that it may not even be possible, but it has been an absolute breeze. This case is really well designed. As you would expect from Case Labs, they've been doing this a while now, but everything just flows so well. Even this area for the cables here, there's cutouts. You can hide the cables up underneath here. We have all of the cables for the fans and the pumps running through here. Down in this bundle, they connect here so that you don't have to go to the back of the power supply, which would require removing that lower section of the case. So you can unplug them here to externally power them. And I was worried about this not fitting, but it fits so well thanks to the great design of this case. The 5.25 inch is perfectly positioned for the Aquero there. And you can see the bundles. We have everything basically running in one central bundle. Everything for the Aquero, fans, pumps, full liquid cooling system control. Extra power to the 3 hard drives here in case the customer wants to install hard drives later on. And you can see the SATA data going to the SSDs there, SATA power, which goes up and over and joins up with the front panel cables there, which worked out really nicely. So yeah, I'm really happy with this case. The design for cable management, for liquid cooling. The radiators are really easy to install with these drop-in mounts. The front one is also a very quick drop-in mount. So I'm going to be filling the loops from the top here. These are going to be the fill ports for the loops. I'll probably extend them up a little bit, and that's perfect because they're actually inlets on the pumps. So that'll just fill the reservoirs really quickly and easily. That works out really nicely. It's minimalistic. The customer did request fill and drain ports run to the outside of the case, but imagine that. If I tried to run these to the outer panel, well, that panel would have to be fixed, and in this case it's not fixed. This panel goes up and over like that, and it's a solid panel. It all comes off the case at the same time, so that would require massive modifications. I'd have to have separate panels on the sides and a fixed panel on the top, and that wasn't really something the customer wanted to do, completely chop up this case and change it. For the drain ports, it's kind of even worse because you wouldn't be able to get your hands into the bottom section here to turn on the valves and turn them off, and it would also require so many fittings to get from here all the way across to somewhere like here to actually put the drain ports on the outside of the case. The amount of fittings that it takes to do those fixed fill and drain ports is just insane, and there's something that you're only really going to use once, maybe twice. So yeah, you should be more minimalistic about fill and drain ports. I try to be, but customers always request them, so we usually have to add them. So I'm going to get those cables installed, and then I can get the rest of the components installed and start on the loop, because all of the cable management and custom cables are done. I've now installed all of the components, and I've completed the custom cables and cable management. except for two cables, which you can see just here, the 8-pin EPS and 4-pin ATX, which I'm going to add at the very end and show you guys how that works, how the panel can be removed from the bottom of the case to get access under the motherboard, because you can see there is not much access here at all. There is actually another panel that fits in here to clean things up and cover up this gap, but I'm not going to be installing it because we have the radiator and fans here and we just have too much going on with all of the cables. It's going to get too cramped. Now, this build is starting to look fairly cramped, but thanks to the great case design, even up until this point, it has still been an absolute breeze to work in this case. There has only been one challenge, and that is the height of the graphics cards. Even though they're vanilla, they're not strict with extra wide PCBs or anything, with the radiator and fans. And we are using fairly slim radiators here. I think they're 30 millimeters or a bit more, maybe 35. So I could have gone for a thinner radiator, but it is just going to fit without the inlet-outlet shrouds. You can see that I've removed those shrouds, which gives us about an extra 4 millimeters, which we definitely did need. With these installed, there was no way the radiator was going to fit. And actually, it's a bit of a puzzle to install this now, because these sections of the loop can't be accessed once the radiator and fans are installed. As you can see here, I mean, these are going to be almost touching. They're going to be 2 millimeters away from the fans, the graphics cards. So this has to be installed first, this length of tube, the SLI bridge, all of this has to be bolted, because you're definitely not going to be able to get in there afterwards. And this length here, and the one going back to the reservoir just here, is going to be very difficult, and that's why I've used a D-plug here, a mini D-plug, and this telescopic fitting here, because I can install this and then just slide it on like that. And that's going to make the radiator basically quick release and easy to install, no fittings to tighten up, it'll just kind of slide on. Now, even though everything looks so cramped and complex, there are actually only 5 lengths of tube in this build, with both of the loops combined. So the loops are fairly simple, and most of the lengths are just 90-degree bends, like this one here, one 90-degree bend, one, and same on the other side. And then there's 2 solid sections as well, obviously on the radiator there. But yeah, that's the last component to install, and then we're pretty much done here. But you can see how I've routed the GPU cables. I'm actually going to clean them up from the bottom when I remove the panel to install the EPS and ATX. These 2 extensions will plug into the radiator fans for the 240 on this side. These are the fill ports. I'm not quite sure if they're going to work or not. I'm just going to have to wait and see if there's surge, or like, I haven't used Protium pump and res combos in a horizontal situation like this. Like, I know it'll all work fine. It's just the fill ports that I'm a little worried about, because I think there'll be so much suction from the pumps that having these open to fill them, it'll just keep sucking air in. And I don't think there's going to be anything we can do to avoid that except for extend the tube, right up to get some height there. But I don't know, it's going to potentially be difficult to fill that way, so I'm just going to have to experiment with those fill ports. I might end up filling from the top of the reservoirs, but we'll have to wait and see. So looking from around the other side here, you can see how well everything fits. We have about a 30 millimeter gap there between the radiator and the GPUs. All of these cable routing holes are just perfectly placed. We could even run that extra Molex power if we wanted to. We could run more USB 2, USB 3. I mean, we have the USB 2 here for the Aquero, front panel cables here for the power and reset button. And you can also see I managed to install drainage systems both in the same place coming out of the pump top, almost the lowest point as well. So that one there is for the GPU loop, and you can just see the end of the other one over there for the monoblock loop. And all you'll do is run 90-degree fittings when you want to use them. You'll install a 90-degree fitting and a barb fitting and just run soft tube out of the other side.